So this is going to be me talking about kind of a more difficult subject. There's lots of difficult subjects I want to breach that in the future. I think I'm going to do them one at a time. So I'm going to do one video about this, one video about that. Otherwise, it's just going to be overload, right? And I guess the best place to start with SR is like the reason why SR was good for me was because I was sexually assaulted as a child and a teenager and molested multiple occasions, right? And I was introduced to certain materials. I was taught certain things and learned certain habits at a young age that the vast majority of people just do not experience life the way I experienced it because I was abused by criminals, right? Was it nobody religious? Just so you know, wasn't like a priest or anything like that. There's some people ask, like, oh, was it this or that? It's like, no, non religious people. But that is how, when you get introduced to those things at a young age in order to cope, right? People tell you, for example, when you get molested, one of the things people hide or one of the things people do to try to get to hide the incidents of the events that's happening is they frame this thing in your mind as a game, right? You're not just doing XYZ and getting molested. It's a game somehow, and like that's how you're trained to think about it. And it involves doing stuff that you just don't normally do, right? And I remember for decades, man, I didn't even think that I was molested because I had been trained to think of, oh, what I did was a game or something like that. And then like I had an epiphany. I was at my job, man, and I was working, and it occurred to me, it's like, oh, this and this happened. That means I was molested. And I remember I had this huge epiphany, like, dang. And it had been, I had, because sometimes people would ask, bro. I had people ask me, yo, did this happen to you? Because I was carrying myself a different way, and I was walking different. It's like, were you abused as a kid? I was abused a lot of different ways, but I always said I was not abused sexually, even though I was. And that's because they train you to think of this stuff like a game. And that's how, like, when somebody asks you, oh, and they also tell you, by the way, don't tell anybody or we'll F you up, we'll hurt you, yada, yada, yada. They say those types of things too. So there's a lot of strange things that happen when you're in the wrong environment. And again, man, for decades, I had not even known that I was abused, but my body was used in a way that was sexual by a bunch of weirdos, and it was cloaked in this, like in the form of entertainment, and that's how a lot of people that's how they get kids to do that type of stuff, right? That's how they get children involved in that type of stuff. Because otherwise, it's like, why would you do some of these things, right? But I guess learning about seed retention was a way of, as the abuse piles up years over years and you don't have nobody to talk to, you try to talk to people about it and they don't understand how to respond or how to cope. SR was like the best way to honestly get rid of all that nonsense. And it's like, that's why this is the thing that sucks, is that like if I ever do have a relapse, it's not a normal person's relapse, right? Because I got all this baggage. So it's like, it's very paramount that I do not relapse, because most people's, like, what's the term? Most people's foundational sexual experiences or whatever are not molestation. Mine are, and just like when people who watch like pornography and stuff like that, they start when they're younger, they see things and people interacting in a way that, like, sex is just not like that in real life. Well, the best way to break away from that type of stuff is to, like, just abstain, If you've been abused in that way, abstinence is like the best way to go, and like SR is the best way to go, because um you really it's really hard to explain. It really is like purifying your mind, purifying your brain, purifying your body. And you, not that every instance of a relapse brings back everything or whatever, but you just run the risk of getting stuck in like old ways of thinking that are not good, that is attached to that abuse. So anyway, I mean, again, I'm not a doctor, okay, so I'm not giving out medical advice here or whatever, but this is just my experience. Yeah, SR was a good antidote to abuse. To every form of abuse, in my opinion, because indulging was a just a means of coping, really, right? Indulgence for me wasn't just like, oh, a regular thing that like, oh, they discovered this thing and it's fun and blah 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 blah. It's a coping mechanism, right? It's not good. So yeah, again, just like my experiences with like indulging in this habit was a lot different for other people. I was introduced to it in a different way, and having continence and self control and discipline is just better than going back to that stuff, right? You know, and I guess that's the other thing, is my final thoughts is like why I can't speak to most people about this type of stuff, right? As far as continence, seed retention, whatever you call it, most people's experience is like, oh, they looked at a dirty magazine or went onto an adult website when they were 13 or something like that. And yeah, and that's how they got exposed to it. And they get exposed to some sick stuff that way, mind you. Yeah, but you know, mine has to do with being abused by people. So two different worlds, in my opinion. Okay, but somebody out there has probably been in the same boat as me. So yeah, if you're coming to this realization and so on and so forth, I guess the other thing is, I'm probably going to reiterate this more and more, is like the biggest deal with not, or with like a relapse or a failure, whatever you call it, whatever you title it, is to like not beat yourself up. Like if you beat yourself up about falling down or like going back to an old habit, it is making it worse than it already is. You know, it's like, even if it does, feel like an injury, you feel guilty, whatever, yada yada yada. You know, it's like two different types of people who get hurt, or a scab. There's people who cry, and there's people who just go through it. Okay, right? It's like there's people who anticipate pain and it makes it more painful, and then there's people who just like, well, I can't do anything about it, right? So I'm just gonna keep moving anyway. So don't anticipate pain. Don't anticipate feeling like a piece of crap or whatever. Just pick yourself up and go to the next thing, and just don't beat yourself up. It's not really useful, and it's actually detrimental to you getting back on track, right? And that's it. It's a little too long of a video, but yeah.